Hello, and thank you for joining us on Constructive Conversations, the podcast that dives deep into the chasm that exists between contractors and their customers. Our goal is to improve communication between contractors and their customers by interviewing people on both sides and gleaning the keys of how to have your construction project go right. We are going to talk to home builders, people who have just had homes built, renovators, tradespeople, people who've undergone major renovations, and we're going to find out what went well, what got missed, and all the crucial steps that you need to hit so that your next project is completed without a hitch, whether you are a contractor or a customer. Today on our show, our guest is Lyndon Smith. Lyndon, thanks for joining us today.
Nick, thanks so much for the invitation and thanks for having me on your show.
Thanks for being here. It's my pleasure. So can you give us a little bit of background about your company and what you do?
Sure. So we run a small business consulting firm called Expansive Edge. We work with the small to medium-sized businesses, typically in the trades, and we build their business playbooks. You might be wondering what a business playbook is. Imagine all your company's vital information, your vision, your mission, your culture, your values, how you operate, the technology that you use, as well as all your standard operating procedures for each and every division that you have, and your company policies and all the roles and responsibilities, all housed in a central digitized platform that is easy for your team to access, consume, and use. That's a business playbook. So we work with teams to extract their information and to basically build these playbooks for companies.
That's great. And what kind of trades, what does your typical company you work with look like?
That's a great question. So we target the trades. It's a world that I know. It's I get the people in the trades, and I also feel like the trades are the lifeblood of our economy. Without the trades, we wouldn't have clean water and sanitation like in our homes, right? We wouldn't have the homes that we live in. We wouldn't have the infrastructure to have these calls, right? So there's a whole lot of development that the trades do that contribute to like how we live these days and the lifestyles that we live these days. So I'm a massive advocate for people that are in the trades, and where I see myself supporting the trades is really these are guys that go in, they've got a qualification, they're great at what they do, but they fall short in some areas in their business. And that's really where I'd like to step in and support them and empower them to really grow their team, grow their crew, grow their business, and create something that's bigger than what they could imagine.
That's great. From being in the industry, I've noticed that's very common in the trades is that they're not organized. They might be good at what they do, but they're not great at running the business aspect. And then that trickles down to the negative customer experience. So I want to dig into that a little bit. So the focus of the podcast is the conversations between the contractor and their customers. So walk us through a little bit. What does it look like for a company when you come in and you help them get organized? What sort of shifts do they start to see?
If we're looking specifically at your relationship or your customer journey, what that looks like is when we start creating systems within your, or standards rather, within your company, there's a journey that your customer will experience. And once you've mapped out that process and you've got that as a standard in your business, you can take them consistently through step by step through that journey, through that process, and ensure that they're getting the same sort of service every single time. So it's think about if you had to go for a haircut, for example, and 1 week you go for a haircut, they give you a cup of coffee, they massage your head, the service is just amazing, and the next week you go to the same place and that customer experience is just awful. You're not greeted with a smile, you don't get the coffee, you're anticipating this head massage as part of the experience, and all you're getting is a great haircut, but there's all those other components that are missing, right? So you want to map out that process and standardize and document that process and train your team to run through that entire process consistently every single time. So a great example is, what's the guy from McDonald's? I forget his surname now. Of course, if you walk into any McDonald's anywhere in the world, I mean, you kind of have a really good idea of what to expect, what the result is going to be. And that's the same concept or principles that we're that we're creating rather with our clients, is when they're working with their clients, that same consistent experience that that whoever referred them to the business, that they're going to get that same level of service.
And do you think that the lack of systems is sort of more endemic to trades? If you compare it to like a technology company, their systems are on a computer, they're there. So do they tend to have more systems in place? And the trades, since it might just be a guy driving around in a van, are they more likely to not have those systems and to not get them in place?
I think businesses in general, doesn't matter if you're in tech, if you're in marketing, if you're in HR, doesn't matter what line or industry of work you're in, there is always going to be a lack of systems or processes if it's not a priority by the business owner. So to answer your question around being in the trades, a lot of tradesmen have systems, they have processes. The challenge is it all lives in their head, right? So the first step is just extracting that knowledge and that information out of their minds, their brains, and documenting it. Even if it's just as simple as doing it on a piece of paper or a spreadsheet, Word document, process flow chart, just extracting that information and making it available for people to consume. The next step is actually putting it into like a knowledge hub where everybody has access to that information, and they can either contribute to it or consume it, right?
Do you find when you work with the business owners to extract that information, is it harder for them to get it out of their head on paper? Is there strategies you use to get that information out of their head?
Yeah, so we need to know what we're trying to extract out of their minds, right? So there's a structure that we would follow. And I've got some templates that we use to kind of prompt the conversation. Look, these templates are not going to be sort of cookie cutter for every business, but it gives the business owner an idea of, oh, yeah, we do that, and then they can document that. Or no, that doesn't necessarily fall within like our typical process or procedure that we run, and then they can eliminate. So those templates are really just, like I say, it's never going to be cookie cutter for each business. Each business operations are going to be different. Doesn't matter if you've got 2 mechanical companies, 10 plumbing companies, 10 electrical companies, their systems are all going to vary, right? And that varies based on their unique selling proposition, who they are for their clients, their culture, everything else that is, that creates the business effectively will kind of drive their systems. There will be some standard processes, that would be industry standards. So like health and safety, certain things like that. How they run their sales will be driven by the technology that they've adopted, right? So they may have a CRM system, let's say HubSpot or Zoho or what's Pipedrive. They may have a CRM system that requires a different process. So each business, depending on the tech stack that they have in place, will have a different, like I said, it wouldn't be a cookie cutter approach.
Okay. And so I have experience with SOPs. I was on the fire department for 6 years, and they have thick books on SOPs and procedures and very detailed, right? There's a lot they have to do, and they have to do it and be able to justify in court, right? Why did you knock out that window? Did that cause the rest of the house to burn down? So my question is, how granular do you aim to get when you're helping business owners create these SOPs, or how granular should they be aiming for?
That's also another great question. The more detail you can give your team and the more clear you can make every step in those processes, the better. You create those standards, and that becomes a company standard. As soon as you start deviating from anything, then you start deviating from the standards that you're creating in your business. So you were talking about that big thick book that you had, right? And I'm not I'm not addressing your question here, but I feel it's important to raise this, this point. So how effective was that book in delivering the content to yourself?
Oh, there was a lot of that I ignored, or the email would come out. Here's a memo regarding updated SOP, and I couldn't be bothered. Um,
Right?
to read it because it was
Yeah.
a lot of it's almost like a legal document or like almost like legislation. So
Yeah.
I don't know if the lawyers had input into it, but a lot of it's not very accessible language.
Oh, that's so important. So the language that you use and the media that you use to transfer that knowledge is also super important. So, are you familiar with the term VAC?
No, no, I'm not.
So it's like your learning modalities. So it's visual, auditory, and kinesthetic is the acronym. And it's basically three different ways that people consume information. So they consume, they're either visual learners, auditory learners, or kinesthetic learners. And typically the trades, because they work with their hands, they'll be kinesthetic, predominantly kinesthetic type learners. And these guys either they learn best from by either doing the work, hands-on approach, or through video, so consuming information through video. And what we do is we once we've got a written procedure, like you say, that language may not land with everyone, right? So we can supplement that with visuals, so graphics. We can supplement that with video. And why video is a really valuable component of creating those SOPs, or supplementing those SOPs rather, it touches on all three of those modalities. So you're watching visual, the actual video, you're listening, so the audio component of it, right? And then you're also, once whoever is delivering that, you're listening to the tone of voice, and you're comfortable with them, and like you kind of have a sense of like kinesthetic, that feeling of, like I resonate with this person, right? Or so they can take that application, watch it as they're busy doing the work as well. And that's why it becomes valuable for like people in the trades to have those supplements in place as well.
Okay, I see. So it's not just a list of documents for
Yeah.
people to read through. You have multimedia so that it's actually engaging for everyone.
So there will be the written procedure. There will be like some multimedia. We can put some explainer videos into that. We can put just like a Loom screen recording in there. So this is how you do it step by step, and you can take them through that journey, right? You can talk them through it whilst they're busy watching the video as well.
Awesome. So can you give the listeners an idea, maybe an example or a case of what it would look like before and after a trades business goes through and implements these systems? Sort of what are their struggles that they faced before and what does it look like afterwards?
Yeah, good question. So typical challenges for these guys are, they are the resource in their business, so they can't take time off. Or if they do take time off, their business stands still, or at least components of their business stand still. So they're always kind of in demand, right? So they can never walk away from their business and go on a vacation and really truly enjoy the vacation. And another part of it is there are key person dependencies. So whilst they may be able to go away, and they have people that are in place to kind of support the business, there are going to be elements of the business that are neglected. And it also means that when those people, those key persons in the business, leave to go on vacation, or something happens, maybe they want to exit the business, maybe they got a better job opportunity, and now you've got like all this knowledge in one resource, and you haven't taken the time to distribute that information to the rest of your team, right? This could be someone in design, engineering, project management, right? The guys that are maybe more dialed in with the systems, but they've never shared those systems with anyone else. So I like to look at the term chaos to control, which we've got a pending trademark on. And that's really what we do, is we take that chaos to control. So we may have Bob and Joe working to a strict set of their own standards, and what we do is, those standards may deviate, they may get the same results, but if Bob needs to work on Joe's project when Joe goes on vacation, where does he start, where does he pick up, and then when he comes back, like, what is he coming back to? So you kind of want to align everything and create a company standard, something that everybody has contributed to, and that gets approved by management, and then it gets published for everybody to use. What else is there? There's a few other the challenges companies come across. It could be a business owner that's looking to exit. So they run their business for the last 20 or 30 years. and they're looking to retire, and they have absolutely no structure or systems in their business. Their business has always been reliant on them. So for them to be able to walk away from their business or sell their business, when they leave, like what is left of that business? They may be just buying the company's, what do you call it, client base, maybe some assets, but they're never going to get maximum value for the 20 or 30 years that they've invested in the company, because they are a crucial component of that business. So once you start introducing systems and the business owner can step away, that becomes a much more attractive business to an investor or a buyer. And because they can buy the business, and within a couple of months everything's operating and running without the previous owner having to be instrumentally involved in the operations of the company. So they can get a lot more money or value for the business in the long run.
Awesome. So really the key person, so if they retire without systems in place, they're taking a percentage of the value of that business to retirement with them because it's stuck in their heads.
Oh yeah.
So if they can just get that out onto paper and systematize, then they can make it available for sale. That can be part of the transaction, basically.
Yeah.
Huh. Awesome.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, there's also a time management component. So if you've got structure and processes set up in your company, when you're onboarding a new employee, it's as simple as running them through like a proper onboarding process and not having to use the resources around or throughout the company to ensure that that person is effectively onboarded. You've got a good solid onboarding system. Yes, you're still going to have to engage with that employee. You're still going to have to bring them into the culture of the company. But in terms of the operations of the company and how the like the vision, the mission, the culture, the values, and then the standard operating procedures of the company, for them to get dialed into that, they don't have to ask all the other employees. They can work through the playbook, and they can be, all right, if I've got any questions after that, you can then have those conversations with the team. You don't have to get someone to sit down with that person for 4 hours a day, for a couple of weeks just to get them up to speed. The system will get them up to speed, right? So that then creates a whole lot more efficiencies, gets that person operational a whole lot quicker in the business. And then in addition to that, you're also saving time of the people that are in the company, and they can still continue doing the work that is adding value to the company, right?
Yeah, so I'm hearing a lot of wins for the business there. So there's efficiencies, training
Mm-hmm.
can be faster, it can be more streamlined. You don't have to waste other people's time in training because the system can be more independent or self-managed. So I'm interested in going back to the conversation we were having before we started. Where did you learn about the need to implement all these systems? Like, where did that come from? Because like you said, there's a lot of businesses that they don't have systems, and they're going through their business life without them at all. So talk about sort of the process that led you to realize that this is necessary and the benefits that come from systemizing business.
Okay, excellent. So I worked for a robotics and automation company serving the mining industry for really about a little over a decade, and I led their design department and also ran some projects for the company. And I was responsible for creating processes for our teams and structure for our teams. And I bumped up against a whole lot of challenges. Culture was one of them. Where those documents are saved and ensuring that they're easily accessible for people was another one. Getting people just to simply read through it, right? I mean, you've spent countless hours and days and weeks, building these standard operating procedures for the team. And does everybody actually read through it? Do they actually consume the information? Or is it just something that you're developing and then it goes into, file 13 and there it sits, and then if someone has a question, you can say, well, our standard is this. Oh, but I've never seen that, right? So these are the challenges that I experienced, throughout the years. I discovered going through that, having those pains and that experience. When I moved into business coaching, I learned a lot more about systems and how to effectively manage the change. When I completed my degree, I also went through an element of change management, and I learned how to start implementing change within companies, and the value behind creating that culture of change, that culture of excellence. So it all starts with the top, and that the adoption of a system and a technology, it's all very much the same thing. A standard operating procedure is a system effectively in your business, right? Regardless of where that lives, or how it's sort of stored in the company's database or the company systems, it's still a system, right? And I learned a lot working with a whole lot of companies as a business coach. I got the opportunity to work for a larger mechanical company here in Canada, and I got the opportunity to sort of develop and help them and support them with their systems. And when I left that company, I thought, there's a great opportunity here for me to bring this to a much wider audience, make a larger impact on the construction and trades industry, people that really need this guidance and support. So that's kind of what led me to where we are today.
Awesome. That's a good, well-rounded background. So I want to give you a scenario. So now I'm thinking back to the fire department and our SOPs. We would have a committee, puts together an SOP, sends it out for review for whatever period, maybe a month, and it's open to comments by anyone in the we can say the company, the department. And then the day would come when the SOP gets implemented. Nobody had read it during the review period, and a bunch of calls get made to the chief saying, "You can't implement this. We don't agree with this. We don't like it." Sort of, have you come up against stuff like that? Sort of that type of resistance, and sort of how would you address that?
Absolutely. So it goes back to the point of change management and culture. When we work with our clients, the first thing we do is we get the executive or leadership team up to speed. Make sure that they are on board with everything, that they understand the value behind what we're doing and how we're doing it, how we're implementing it, that they're dialed in with the software or the techniques that we're applying. Once we've got their buy-in, you're creating a vision, right? And it's the same thing with anything. Everybody then hooks their cart to that vision, and you're working together to achieve the same objectives. So that would be the first step. And then the next step would be to introduce maybe your middle management team, depending on how the company is structured. Introduce the middle management team, get them up to speed, get them creating in this environment, get them reviewing, and then the rest of the company. So everybody else in the company, you start bringing them up to speed. So to answer the question, what you want to do is you want to create that culture of excellence and that culture of agility within the business, so that everybody is contributing to the overall success of the organization. And you're bringing them in through that vision of what you're creating and how you're doing it, and the value that each of these systems and processes that we're implementing, the value that has for the team as a whole, right? So once you can start painting that picture for them and they've got clarity on that, then you have a much higher chance of success.
I really like what you said there, creating the culture of agility. Can you elaborate on that? Sort of what's some tips that can help create that culture?
Yeah, it really, Nick, it goes back to what I was saying about just getting everybody on the same page, right? You creating that vision. So why are we even doing this? Simon Sinek wrote that book, Start with Why. So we get into that, why are the first meeting I would have with our clients, with the executive team, would be, all right, gentlemen, or everybody in the room, what is the objective why are we doing this project? What is it that we're out to fulfill? And I get them clear on that and make sure that everybody in the room is clear. So the culture then gets driven from the top, right? And leadership is not really a way of it's not a way of doing, or the things that they have in their company. It's a way of being. So it's their way of being that then starts filtering through the rest of the organization. I don't know if that answers your question, how to get everybody on board, how to create that culture of agility. The culture of agility, it's, if your leadership team are agile and they can be dynamic in the decisions that they're making, that kind of filters and resonates through the rest of the organization. If your leadership team are sloppy and slow, that's going to resonate through the rest of the organization, because they're leading by example. It's their way of being that is going to filter through the rest of the organization.
Yeah, that definitely answers it. That's really good. Okay, and so we've gone over, you systemize a business, and there's, you've enumerated there's tons of benefits. There's a lot of benefits that come from that. And generally those companies, let me know if I'm wrong, they're gonna be able to provide better service, more consistent, high quality service, probably because they're more efficient, their pricing is going to be more competitive. So what I'm getting at is that from the customer perspective, they want to be hiring a company that has these systems in place. How can they check that? Say you're someone who's going to hire a trade or a company for a major reno. What's a litmus test they can do to see, is this company being driven by the seat of the pants of the person in charge, or do they have the systems in place that are going to ensure I have a good outcome, and it's not just going to depend on how the crew was feeling that week?
So that's a good question. So what I've seen in some of the clients that I've worked with is they actually create a summarized version of their customer journey or their process, right? And what that experience looks like. And in their proposals, they say this is the journey we're going to take you through. This is what it looks like. So these are the systems that we have, right? Maybe going back to the point, like, how do they know? What's the litmus test? It's really comes down to them doing their due diligence, right? Asking the right questions, going in and checking the reviews. Has someone referred this company to me, or am I just sort of doing some research on Google and figuring out, like, who to go to, right? So testimonials and reviews are a great way for a company to demonstrate, like, this is what the experience will be like with us. This is what you can expect. Now, I know there are some flaws in that. It's not a, I mean, I hired a moving company to get me across from BC here to Alberta, and I based my decision purely on Google reviews. And I discovered later that they were able to, they had a process or a system that they could doctor those reviews and eliminate the poor reviews. And whilst I think it's totally unethical, these are the things that you've got to be mindful of, like, and take it at face value for what it is. And relationships are built, business relationships are built on trust, right? So if someone in your network has referred you to a business and they've done work with them, you can I would say, for the most part, you could trust that referral, or that that person that they're pointing you to is giving them good service. It doesn't always mean that you're going to experience the same service, but it's probably one of the best approaches to take, I would say.
Okay, yeah, that's good. So they can do their due diligence and then see if the company even has their process on their website that's just plainly available, or on their proposal that's available for them to see. Oh yeah, these people do have a process. They're not just making it up as they go along.
Or, I mean, the other side of it is communication, right? So you could simply just ask them, can you take me through your typical project life cycle, or your customer process? What is this project going to look like, right? And then they can explain it. You'll understand, or you'll see you'll hear in the listening of their response how effective their processes are, and how dialed into their processes that they actually are.
Yeah, that's really good. I'll reiterate that. So the customer should ask the contractor to take them through the process just on the phone, and then they can gauge from that answer, is there a dial-in process that exists or not? So that's definitely a good question. Could you venture a guess as to how many trades, how many, these small businesses are able to answer that question and have those systems in place? Is it, so that's your industry. So do you have a gauge of how many do or don't have that in place?
I don't know. I would have to hazard a guess here, and I would say very little. Probably even goes as far as saying like less than 10%.
Yeah, I could see that. I always say if a contractor answers their phone when it rings and replies to emails the same day, they're in the top 5% of contractors. So it's kind of a low bar, but
Yeah.
yeah, I can see that. Yeah. And also because especially the contractor industry is not regulated, so it's open to anyone to come in and hang their shingle, and they don't necessarily have
Yeah.
to have anything in place. Okay. Anything else any topic you want direction you want to go in particular?
I think, yeah, I'm gonna maybe just share with you the components of a playbook and, like the vital components of a playbook. I mean, anybody listening to this podcast, I mean, like they don't have to engage in our services, but when they're creating their playbook, some things to consider, right? So there are four key areas when we're developing our playbooks or companies' playbooks for them. There are four key areas that we look at. The first area is like all the company information. So as I mentioned earlier in the call, that company information could be, having your vision, your mission, even your company's purpose, like what it is that you're out to achieve, right? All the company values. These are, like you typically find these on like a company's website, or they've done this work before, but it doesn't really mean anything. So like really getting attached to to this to these components and driving that, it's becomes a way of everybody in that organization. So if you value integrity, make sure that everybody in the company has integrity, right? And that they're operating with a level of integrity that is benchmark in your company. So more on the company sort of pillar is like your technology stack. So what technology are you using? So you think about your sales. You'll have a CRM, you'll have your marketing, so your website, your social channels that you're using, what you're using to develop any social content, where your blogs are housed, like all that kind of tech that you use. And then you start looking at operations. So what project management software are you using? Are you using like SiteDocs to manage safety? Are you using Trello or Monday, or maybe something more significant like Procore for your project management tools? So there's a whole lot of operational stuff that you can, that tech stack that you can start unpacking as well. Finance, so are you using like QuickBooks or Sage, or what does that look like? How the company uses it as well. How are you preparing your bids and your estimates? Are you just doing them in Excel? Do you have software for that? Or, I mean, Excel is software, but do you have like a more sophisticated software? And then like that whole blanket with like your cybersecurity. How are you protecting your business? How are you protecting your database, your drive, your storage, things like that? How are you protecting your information? So we start looking at like your tech stack, and then just how you're using it. And then we can also start seeing, are there perhaps some integrations or APIs that exist to optimize the links between those technologies that you're using? Or perhaps maybe there's a better solution that you could use as well. So there's a few components that live in the first pillar, which is your company. The next pillar is your people, right? So this comes down to having a solid organization structure or a roles structure. I think Michael Gerber from the E-Myth probably says it best, or he created the concept of having a functional chart or an accountability chart. What that really looks like is you don't have your titles in the company like the president, operations manager, the project manager, and then the field guys. What it looks like is you've got the functions within the organization. So the function could be marketing, admin, like all the different functions in the business. And then you've got like a people based. So who are those people? Because the president for a smaller company might be the admin manager, the marketing manager, the general manager, the ops manager, and so on and so on. So once you start creating that and you see how many different roles you as the owner in the company or your people in the company are fulfilling, you can start creating the opportunities to start filling those with new people as you're bringing them into the company. So you bring the right people into the right positions, and they're a whole lot more effective, and the people that are working on 2 or 3 functions or roles that can focus on their singular role, right? What else is there on people? Yeah, just having their responsibilities clearly defined. I've joined companies in the past, and I'm sure other people have experienced this as well, but not being clear on what your roles and responsibilities are in the company. So just having a clear outline of what I'm responsible for, right? These are my outputs. And through that, you can start generating some KPIs. You can align that with your company's OKR, so your objectives and basically your goals, the company goals. And the KPIs are just a metric to measure performance, so key performance indicators, just in case anybody doesn't know those terms. The third pillar would be your policies. So here, think about your human resource policies, health and safety policies, IT policies, anything like that you want a place for that to live. And then the very last pillar would be your standard operating procedures. So here, what I typically do when I work with clients is I take a look at all the different departments in the company, and I create a playbook for finance. I create a playbook for marketing. We create a playbook for sales, a playbook for operations. So we break all the departments up, and then we create the playbooks for each of those departments and how all the procedures in there work. Yeah, so it's a very high level on those 4 pillars. And if anybody's looking at building their own playbook, these are the things that they want to make sure that they've got inside there.
That's great. Hopefully that's helpful if there's any contractors in the 90% who don't have systems, then that's definitely a great place to start. If not, they can call you and get some professional help with that. So
Anytime, yeah.
yeah. So on that theme, I'm a fan of systems, and in my business I'm working to implement that as much as possible. So I want to sort of pitch this to contractors so that they can really drive home the value. So can you talk about the mindset, sort of how that affects the mindset of the CEO or the business owner? How does that change from keeping everything in their head to having it systemized in place? Here it is. I can hand it off to whoever I need to hand it off to.
So mindset's a massive thing, right? And moving into a systems thinking mindset is a whole new world for some people. Where people perhaps don't realize is that every single day they're running through a system, right? You get out of bed, you brush your teeth, you shower, there's a process that you follow. You travel to work, read your emails, there's a process or a system that lives there, right? Although it's not written down and documented, not everything has to be. There's systems that we follow in our daily lives, right? So the point I'm making is once your business's systems are documented, even though there's systems that everybody in the company has. Your admin person, or the person that opens the door to the company every day and locks up, the alarm codes, the keys that they use, where they keep the keys, like how we greet people when they come into the company. That's that's part of a system, right? It becomes part of your culture. So once that is communicated to the team, right, and it's extracted from your CEO or your president or the company leaders' brains, so to speak, and communicated to your teams, it creates transparency, and that transparency in how we do things and why we do things, and this is how this is what we expect the results to be from doing these things. It gets everybody up to speed, and everybody kind of it changes the whole dynamic of how things work in the company. So what is the value to the CEO, or what can you get me present to your question again, just to make sure I'm hitting the
Yeah.
right note here?
So sort of what I'm getting at is how does it affect their mental health, basically, to not have all these things jammed up in their head?
Well, yeah, that's an easy it's going to make it a whole lot better, right? Because now they can start working on their business and not always in the business. I'm sure you may have heard that term before, work on the business, not in the business. it gives them the space, it gives them the time, it gives them the opportunity to have clarity on so many other things that are going on. It gives them the opportunity to actually run their business and grow their business, right? So in terms of a mental capacity or a mental state, yeah, it frees them up. It gives them the space that they need to really be effective and contribute more to the company, to the organization, and the people in the company. Make better decisions because we've got the like we've got the mental capacity and the space to do that now, because I'm not bogged down in trying to explain 20 different things to 20 different people every single day, making sure that they're doing it right or that they know how to do it, because it's in my system, it's documented, it's there and available for everybody to see. Is that a better answer to your question?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. So they're going from putting out fires, and I've met contractors, and it seems like they've been running the business for 20 years, continuously putting out fires the whole time. That's the one where you see all the papers piled up on their dashboard,
Yeah.
driving around with their hair falling out. So yeah, so that gives them the opportunity to work on the business, and then they can start to improve and get. It's almost like compound growth from
Absolutely.
that, and then they really start to take off.
And they as a result of that become better. They become better leaders, and the team that they have become more loyal, because the owner is not focused on, like you say, putting out fires. The owner is focused on creating an awesome being an awesome leader, right? And that leader, there's so many components to that. Being a great leader for their people, being a great leader in terms of driving the direction of the company, finding new opportunities, growing the business. It's really it changes the whole dynamic of everything that's going on in the company. So yeah.
So that's just like you were saying, the leadership, the trickle down effect that trickles down into the culture and improves the company. So once the leadership has the mental capacity to work on themselves, then that translates down into the rest of the company, and then the rest of the company sees the improvements as well.
Yeah.
Great. That's awesome. Okay. Any other
Yeah, it's when people think of systems and processes and procedures, it can be quite daunting. It can be, like if you're looking at it and you think, this is a mountain of stuff that I've got to plow through to get it done, and then you end up avoiding it altogether. The real change needs to come into that consistency, so that way of being, and contributing towards your system on a continuous basis. So if you're doing, I think James Clear from Atomic Habits says it best, that 1% improvement every day will make you 37 or a little bit more than 37 times better than what you were by the end of the year, like within 1 year. So if you're contributing to your system on a daily basis, and getting your team to contribute to your system on a daily basis, that mammoth task that you have in front of you is, like, it's a long-term thing. And you always got to consider your playbook and your SOPs in your company as living documents, because as your business grows and evolves and you start bringing on more people and taking on different projects, you're gonna require new procedures. You're gonna require new systems, right? And then there was something else I wanted to share. I went a little bit
oh, no,
into
that's
that,
good.
but
Yeah, that's definitely really good to chunk it down and then just work away at it, and then eventually you get through that mountain, and then go
yeah.
from there. So off of that thought, so at that point when somebody's working on their procedures, or say they have all the SOPs in place and now they're in that position where they can grow, at that point, what do you see as becoming the barriers to growth? So now the company is rapidly evolving or growing. What new challenges start to come up at that point?
Well, there's always going to be different types of challenges. We can look at like microeconomic or macroeconomic challenges that come across, industry challenges. But if you're not focused on working in your business anymore, and you're actually in a position where you can gauge what's happening in the industry, there could be a slump in the market, there could be a massive spike in work that's coming in, and you can then start positioning yourself to take on those bigger projects, or positioning your business to be a bit more resilient through the tough times, where there might be a slump in the market. So those challenges, I mean, I could have this conversation for the next 4 days on challenges that businesses could experience. Challenges for trades, I think it's just maintaining the culture that you develop in the company. So always being present, always being available to your team, having that culture of this is the standard, this is the benchmark, and this is what sets us apart from our competitors. Like there's so many challenges that can come up. Just trying to think what particular challenges could come up in the trades, and I think it could just be like I say, those macroeconomic impacts that you could sort of ebb and flow with in the business.
So
Yeah.
that's good then. So what I'm getting is, once you're no longer focused on the fires at hand, then you can start to have awareness looking forwards and into the future, and then anticipate the waves coming in instead of getting hit from behind by them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or you start moving into a mindset where you're not just surviving, you're actually thriving through the tough times, because your business is positioned for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those companies that don't have the structure in place, that don't have the systems in place, it's likely that they're going to fall apart, right? They're going to have to shut their doors, when things get really tough, because they cannot secure the work, or clients are going to come to your company because you've got the structure, and they know they can trust that you're going to deliver on time. Where those guys are just going to be competing against you on price. That doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Price is only a question in the absence of value.
I like that. Price is only a question in the absence of value. That's good. So you mentioned one of the challenges that could come up is maintaining the culture. Can you talk more about how somebody can prepare and ensure that they can maintain that culture once they've established it and they're working towards growth?
Yeah, it's a tough one, and I think this is what sets good businesses apart from like incredible great businesses. Guys that really thrive. The good businesses can have good strategies, they can have good team, but if they don't have good culture, I don't know who says it, but like they say, culture eats strategy every single day. Now, if you've got a good culture in your business, you've got a team that are willing to go above and beyond. They really can deliver results far beyond what your expectations are. And I think culture comes from having integrity, and just being authentic with as a leader in your company, but also bringing people on that align with the culture. Being clear on what your culture is, right? Like who you are as a team, who you are for your clients, and what that culture looks like, and then making sure you're bringing the right people on board, because not everybody is going to align with your culture. And if you've got the wrong people in your business that don't align with that culture, well, guess what? That culture is going to shift more towards those people that that could be like a sour apple, or a bad grape, or whatever the term is, right? So if you have someone in your business that is not aligned with your culture, it's all it's either best to have that conversation with them, and it's communication is probably one of the key answers here. Is have that communication with them, and always be in communication with your team, but bring them in and say, like, that's not how we do things here. This is who we are for our clients. This is who we are as a team. This is what we expect. So always just having open communication with your team, I think that's the the biggest point on culture, really. So that when things go wrong, you always then look at yourself as a leader. You're like, where did I fail my team here? It's not pointing fingers at the person, but where did I fail my team here? Because there's something that was missing, right? It was either a system or a process. It was either communication. There was something that was missing for this person to either believe that behavior was acceptable, or that the service that they've delivered was acceptable, or that it's okay. we want to set a benchmark and make sure that everybody's living up to those standards in the company. So I think when it comes to culture, the keywords there are authenticity, communication, and just like having those conversations, right? Being clear on what the expectations are. So like having that vision. And this is really like the first pillar that I spoke about earlier, your vision, your mission, your values. I mean, that's like at a very sort of low level or high level, sorry, what every business should have. Because if you don't have that, I mean, what are people really there for? What are they, what is the business out to achieve, and how are they a part of that, right? So just bringing them along that journey with you, right?
Awesome. That's great. I like to ask this question to all the guests. What do you see in the future of the industry in general, in the trades in general, and in your case specifically, with trades becoming more systemized and organized? What are the trends you're seeing, at least in the section of the industry that you're exposed to?
Okay, good. So, I mean, like I'm relatively new to Canada. We've been here in Alberta for 3 months and in Canada for 2 years and 3 months. So my observation of the trades or the construction industry here in Canada is that it is growing. It's growing at such a massive rate. There's such a shortage of homes. And I came out of British Columbia, and I know a lot of people that from my home country, South Africa, that have moved to Ontario. The property prices are absolutely absurd. And I think there's a massive demand surge that's happening here in Alberta at the moment because the homes are affordable, right? And people are moving from those provinces here. It's a beautiful country. It's a first world country. And, it becomes very attractive for people from all over the world to come here. I know we attended a presentation from the economic development manager a couple of weeks back, and he was saying that Alberta has grown in population by 184,000 people. Now, whilst that doesn't seem like a significant number, it is massive. I mean, if I take a look at construction, I stay here in a little town called Cochrane. I'm sure you know where it is. If I look at what's happening here, it's exploding. The construction industry is booming. There's buildings being developed in every single direction here. And it's the same when you go to Airdrie. It's the same when you go to all these little towns. That corridor between Edmonton and Calgary is also looks like that's going to be developed substantially over the next couple of years. So there's a lot of economic planning and development that's going on behind the scenes to accommodate all these new people coming into the province and into Canada, right? So systems, how do systems play a role there? I think, like to answer that question. So how systems come into play here is, if you want to land those bigger contracts or those bigger projects, you're going to need some pretty solid processes and systems in place to stand out from the rest of the crowd, right? Because there are going to be a lot more people stepping into this space to leverage that demand. But in saying that, I think the other challenge that I see with the construction industry or trades is that it's becoming aged out to a degree, right? And a lot of like the youth are not as interested as in stepping into a construction or a trades position. They want the cushy office jobs. They want to be influencers. And where I'm seeing this, the impact of this is in retail, in trades, and like these kind of spaces where it's customer facing, right? How we can mitigate that, I think that's a long that's a topic for a whole other conversation. But it's really just pumping the tires and honoring the trades as an industry that is, like I said earlier, they are the lifeblood of our economy. Making sure that we're developing and growing businesses that have great leaders and that create meaningful workplaces, right? And that's what I'm out to achieve through the work that I do, is create meaningful workplaces. Employee retention is another component. You asked the question earlier, what is the value of bringing or what are the challenges? If there are no systems in a business, employees don't like floundering around and waiting for like information. They want to have access to it immediately. we're in an age where we have like Google and all these tools that are available to us, these AI tools now as well, and they want information now, right? And if they can't get information on how to do their job, they're going to start looking for something else, right? If they not getting the leadership that they deserve, right? Because they're human beings as well. Everybody deserves good structure, good leadership, right? When they're in a company, and if we can empower leaders to to become that for their team and to grow their teams, that'll be awesome. Create more meaningful jobs, and like I say, honor the trades, because they, like I say, they are the lifeblood of our economy. Without them, we wouldn't have the clean water and sanitation. We wouldn't have the ability to have this call right now, because we wouldn't have the infrastructure in place to to jump on the internet and have an online call, right?
That's great. Yeah, that's a great message. I like that. Everyone deserves good leadership, definitely. And I appreciate that your business works to create that and make more meaningful workplaces. So that's great. Awesome. Well, Lyndon, I appreciate you coming on the show. I learned a ton. So I appreciate your time and your insights. That's definitely is valuable to me. So I'm sure it's going to be valuable to our listeners as well. So thanks again for coming on.
Nick, thank you so much for having me on the call. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit with yourself and with your audience. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you and picking these conversations up as well.
Definitely. I'm interested to have you back on the show again for another one. There's some other topics we can cover, definitely.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right. Thanks, Lyndon.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Constructive Conversations. Please share with your friends who are contractors and customers, people who have done big renos or builds or who have them coming up, so they can learn how to have the right conversations around their construction project. I encourage you to follow the podcast because we have some very great guests coming up. We're aiming for one podcast per week, so make sure you're following. Thank you again for listening. Have a wonderful day.